I was born down on what I call down on the river, because there was a hospital down there at the time. My parents had moved here from Massachusetts 3 months before I was born. But of course I don't remember that. But they did live in the 50s, which are these I call English Tudor homes. My father was able to traipse across where Supermarket Row is now to where he was in charge of the new Holliston Mills that was being constructed. He started in on the ground floor, and he was the manager. I can remember, I don't really remember living in the 50s, except looking out the kitchen window to the back and seeing small planes land down there. It's where all of those small houses are now, and I've forgotten what they call that. It's down behind the hospital. And then they moved, my parents and my sister and brother by this time, moved to White City, which is the circle on Yadkin Street. And that's where I call home, really. Dobbins Bennett was just a block away, and Washington School was down at the end of Watery Street. And did I say Washington School? I meant to say Robert E. Lee School at that time. It's a little schoolhouse that's still there. And then Washington School was a block, really just a half a block away. So, and we walked everywhere in those days. And then just though while I was in high school, they took the old Lincoln School over and made it into a junior high. And it now is the Renaissance Center, which I think has been such a wonderful addition to Kingsport. The Cultural Center headquarters are there, offices, and the Senior Center. I am really impressed with what they do. Then I went off to school in Boston, and then I worked in New York, and then I had to come home to meet my husband. He came to Eastman not many months before I came home, and it wasn't exactly love at first sight, but we did have a wonderful 51-year marriage, 2 children, and he died unexpectedly 15 years ago. But we first lived on Dobbins Drive, and then we bought over here 41 years ago. It's hard for me to believe. It's just that people are so nice in Kingsport, and they come from all over. It's not just the natives. In fact, that's what I like about Kingsport. From the beginning, the people that really made the city were the people that came in to work in industry. Now, I don't mean the natives, I mean the people that came to head Eastman and Meade and Borden Mills, and I'm afraid I'll leave some. Kingsport Press, that was one of the reasons for my parents coming. The Holliston Mills supplied book cloth to Kingsport Press, which was right next door. Well, it is officially the Kingsport Book Club, and it's the first book club that was organized in Kingsport in 1919, and 5 ladies that liked to read would get together with the books that they owned or they ordered and decided Kingsport needed to start a library, so they gave their own books to start it. And originally the building's been torn down, but it was at the Kingsport Improvement Building, but one end of it had a YMCA, and they had a swimming pool, and which had nothing to do with the library, except it was all in the same building. and then they expanded, and I guess it was there until they took over the post office down on Broad Street. I could be wrong about that. Kingsport Symphony Orchestra was formed, I think, well, I know it was in the 40s, and my mother was a violinist and was a charter member. And she also, but even before that, when I was a little girl, she taught private lessons in our home. And I do remember having to be quiet while she was teaching. And I still have the piano she used to bang on. She could play, not symphony numbers, but she could accompany the violinist. And I don't remember how long she stuck with that, but she played it. Kingsport was small enough so that about every wedding and funeral that came along, she was asked to play her violin, which she did. And that was great that they thought that much of her ability that they would ask her. And but then the orchestra really has grown so, and it is very professional now, and I think excellent. Well, there was the Beta Club, which was, you had to make good grades, be on the honor roll or something, and I think it's still there, but I'm not sure. And of course the high school band, and that was my interest. But as I recall, we only had 40 members. Now it's almost 400, I think. So it has expanded, and I'm so proud of our band now, and I was then too. Oh, we used to go to Asheville to parade in some kind of a festival, and to Knoxville. The first time I was on an escalator was going to Knoxville with the high school band, and one of the drugstores down there had an escalator. And so we did different things back then, and of course now they go all over the country. Let's see, the other music, of course, it's the most popular now, and what I call country music or gospel. I've gotten used to it. Now, growing up, we didn't like to admit that we liked anything like that. When I went away to school, my roommate heard she didn't know me and I didn't know her, but she knew I was from Tennessee. And she said, "Do you like that country music?" And I said, "No." She said, "Thank goodness." She was from Springfield, Massachusetts. And she actually, you don't have to put this in, but she was the niece, I didn't know it at the time, didn't recognize anything, of Theodore Geisel, who was Dr. Seuss. His sister was my roommate's mother. My husband was Bill Gideon, William Pinkney III. He was actually from Birmingham, Alabama, but he went to UT because his father had been transferred there, and graduated from Knoxville High School. But then when he graduated, well, he was in World War II in the Navy and was in the Pacific. But when he graduated, he came back as a freshman to UT and graduated as a chemical engineer. So that's what he did when he came to Eastman. And after he had been here, well, actually, I think it was no more than 2 years, year and a half maybe, he was transferred to Chicago. And we were dating, but we hadn't known each other too long, and I said, he proposed, and he said, "How would you like to live in Chicago?" I said, "Well, I haven't known you very long." But anyway, he talked me into it, and I was so glad he did. And he ended up in the plastics division, and he's the one that helped develop the green plastic bottle for drinks, Mountain Dew and Sprite and so forth. And they have that first, he was given the first bottle, and they called me one day from Eastman and wanted to know if I would put it in their museum, give it back to them. I said, sure. I think Kingsport's been very good to me, and I just think it's a wonderful place to live. And my daughter, when I told her about this, she said, Mother, tell them about the downtown, how you were so thrilled, and she is, to come back and visit what is happening downtown. She loves those new shops, and and I do too. I haven't spent as much time as I would like to in them, but I just think the new restaurants and the cultural things, the education. Yes, I mean, the whole town is full of good spirits.